So we're here in North Hollywood. This is where I first landed when I moved to Los Angeles 20 years ago. And when I moved to Los Angeles, I got my very first leather jacket. And it meant so much to me because when I was growing up in Massachusetts, I couldn't afford a leather jacket. And leather jackets meant rock and roll to me. It meant social status. It meant I was cool. So I went and I got my first leather jacket at a trading post, a thrift shop on Melrose Avenue. And I loved it. It was $35. It was from the 1970s. And I called it my Shaft jacket because it looked exactly like the jacket that Richard Roundtree wore in the original movie version of Shaft. And also, it was so badass that every time I wore it, I would hear theme music. You know, that Curtis Mayfield, ticka-ticka-down, ticka-ticka-down, with the Isaac Hayes string sections, and wee-dee-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. And, you know, backup vocalists telling me how awesome I was, telling me how all the women wanted to be with me and all the men got to get out of the way because badass Scott was walking through. It's that kind of a badass jacket. So shortly after I got the jacket, I got invited to do some stand-up comedy at a club off of Fairfax called The Mint down by Pico. And I thought I knew Los Angeles fairly well, but I hadn't been in town very long. So I knew Fairfax Avenue as that little stretch of Jewish delis. But it turns out that Fairfax is actually more than just Jewish delis. It's like a 6-mile avenue, and all parts of Los Angeles are represented within that stretch, especially 20 years ago before the gentrification of the city when there were still apartments for under $1,000 a month. But that was okay. I have my leather jacket. I'm going to go walk this stretch. I couldn't afford the bus because I had my new leather jacket, but I want to see the avenue and get my strut on. So I'm walking and walking and walking and walking and walking and walking. And it's about 2 hours of walking, but I'm okay because I'm all caught up in the backup vocalist telling me how awesome I was for my jacket and I was so caught up that I didn't realize that there were 3 real thugs standing in front of me about 50 feet ahead up on the sidewalk. So instead of casually crossing the street and continuing on my way, I noticed them when I'm about 10 feet away, and now I have to casually walk past them and hope that they don't take notice of me. So I'm like, all right, Scott, be cool. You know, don't look at them, but don't look away from them either. You don't want to offend them. And, you know, I just kind of walk past them, and the one in the middle turns to me and he says, "I like your jacket." And for some reason, I stop and I say, "Thank you." I think I was just grateful to receive a compliment, you know, on my jacket, a little bit of, you know, validation from an actual thug. And, you know, it felt good. So I thanked him, and I went to continue on my way to the club, and he says, "Can I have your jacket?" And I thought he was joking. I'm like, yeah, good one. No. And, you know, I go to walk, and he says, "You don't understand. I like your jacket. Can I have it?" And all of a sudden, the thought occurs to me, I think I'm being mugged. And then my mind leaps to my only visualization of a mugging, which was the end of part 1 of a 2-part episode of the old sitcom The Jeffersons, when George Jefferson goes back to his original dry cleaners in Harlem, and he's in the alley behind the dry cleaners, and he gets mugged, and he gets stabbed through his leather jacket. And I'm thinking, oh man, I don't want to get stabbed. And like I thought, like maybe I should hit him and run, but there's 3 of them, and I don't know where I am, and I don't know if they're packing, and you know, underneath this jacket, I got pipe cleaners for arms. You know, I'm not a fighter, so yeah. So I gave him the jacket, and yeah, I was so bummed. And then he says to me, "You got any money?" And I said, "Dude, if I had any money, you wouldn't have a jacket right now, 'cause I'd be on the bus." And then the dude, he pulls out his fist and puts it out in front of my stomach, and I'm thinking like, oh man, now I'm going to get stabbed or beat down or jumped. But he was actually just waiting for me to give him a fist pump, because it was pretty cordial exchange, except for the actual exchange portion of it. I think, you know, maybe if we'd met like in Echo Park at a club or on the Sunset Strip, maybe we would have been friends. But I was walking through his hood wearing a badass jacket that I wasn't deserving of wearing. And So I continue on my way, and now I have no more theme music in my head, just a loser kazoo going, meh, meh. And I get to the club, and I tell the headliner there who had a cell phone, this is when not everybody had cell phones, I'm like, dude, I got mugged, lend me your phone, I have to call the police. And I explain to him what happened, and he says, wait a minute, let me get this straight. A man tells you he likes your jacket and asks you if you'll give it to him, and you give it to him. That's not a crime. That's a gift. So he never gave me the phone. I never called the police, and I never saw my jacket again. And to this day, 20 years later, I still don't know for sure whether I was actually mugged that day or if I was just a really, really nice coward.